Thanks for testing that for me and giving me some good feedback. Uh, yeah, crashing on exit, that one I'm not sure about. The way the program works, the way that it's kind of set up is whenever I open a game, so the term open game is really a term that means I'm populating a data structure with values that I can use in an application. For example, it would one of the things it does contain is the location of the plugin text file, along with custom user innies and things like that. And the reason I do it that way is in the main mod helper application, you can specify partial ini files. And what the application does is compile all these partial files into a final file. So you can go in and activate this little partial ini, this partial ini, and the ones that are not active won't be compiled into the custom ini. That was kind of like the idea behind that. Okay, so yeah, as far as the crashing, I'm gonna have to try to figure that one out. That one is new because all it does when I open the game, well, the first thing I do is I load the game configuration file, which is right here. It would be in the actual packages here. And it's right here. Let's get where you can see this. It's right here. So that's one of the first things I do is I have to load this information. And part of what the load method does, it parses all of this data. So if you were to take a quick look at this, there is a default, there's a default here. And whenever a game is loaded, this is the first group of uh, keywords that are parsed. I mean, this is the same for all games, and this was kind of like this. I did this a while back. It was quite a while back, and it was kind of my way of trying to keep an any file small and tight. I didn't want to replicate information, if I didn't need to. So this is the first thing that gets loaded. So every game that is defined in this game's tag, Morrowind, all of these, Oblivion, this is the first thing that gets loaded for every single game. So what I'm doing is I'm building up an array list of keywords that I can then parse. And it will be okay because the list is appended to. So this list is loaded with these values, and then or these records, and then it loads. Let's say you're gonna load Morrowind, then it loads these on top of that. So these would come after. So when it's parsed, it's gonna parse the default value, and then if there is a similar keyword in the actual game section, those override the defaults. And the reason I did this way, like I say, I can share that data between different games, and I always ensure that games have at least some default to work with. See where you got like archive folder, things like that. And I added these basically for myself. Okay, so each game configuration can be they're very similar, and they share data, but they can be unique to each game. Like in the example of Morrowind, I believe Morrowind, I think I had to put an absolute path. I think it was an absolute path to the executable here. See install path, but then I thought the install path was a little bit different, but I think I got that from a registry key because for some it was something different about it. I don't remember. But this is the game. This is the game. So there's two different variables in this data structure. So there is a game and there is a game name. And I had to do that because in the example of, let's say, in like Oblivion, it didn't matter because Oblivion is just Oblivion. It's a single word. But when you start getting into Skyrim SE, it's a little bit different because here, see where it has game name? That has a game name identifier or keyword. So I need access to this in order to build other other paths. See right here where it says game name. So when it builds these folders, what it does, it does basically substitutional parameters. So each one of these is in a sense a substitutional parameter. And I had to put the way that I kind of did a substitutional parameter, it's identified like this. It has a $sign, a brace, and then the parameter name. But I had a problem because if I wanted to make it so you could actually load game information anytime without messing up your current uh, replacement parameters. So like if you've got, let's say you've got Fallout 4 loaded and these variables are all set, I didn't want to reset these because at this time I actually share a common data structure. It's called the current game info. So when these are parsed, it's put in a current game info. Now you can put these in any game info you want, and that's part of what I have to kind of migrate that older code to so that it's more it'll be more reentrant. It doesn't use such localized data. But here in Fallout, let's see, there should be Fallout 4. Let's look at Fallout 4. So if you look at this, this is where it's looking to get the load order right here. So if we change this to be the one that you mentioned, I think you mentioned, let's see, I think it's the, okay, I can kind of see it now. So if you change this, yeah, I didn't want to read your full path. If you change this to the actual load order for Mod Organizer 2 in that normal profile, it should find it. The only problem is that if you switch to another profile, it won't know to switch that. So I'm not familiar with Mod Organizer 2. So does Mod Organizer 2 have a data file, a common data file where it stores its current profile information? Therefore, I could load that data file, get the current profile's path, and then or get the current profile name or the current profile's path, or get those paths from, like in a text file. Because you can hard code this, but again, if you switch profiles, it won't know. So that would take care of that. This right here is something I've got scheduled to do because when I open a game, when I actually open the game, what I'm doing is I'm loading this information for Fallout 4. This is why when you look in those standalone application inis, there is a game startup keyword. That way it knows how to locate this because this has a space where the game name doesn't. Game name would be usually like what I would use in a registry. See in the registry, it's got Fallout 4 without spaces. And I thought, well, I could make this Fallout 4. I could make it the same, but I thought, no, because I've got Skyrim Special Edition completely spelled out. So this is the configuration file for that. So changing that would temporarily alleviate the problem, but I need to be able to switch between, because I don't use Mod Organizer 2, so I'll need to be able to switch between that somehow. And if there's a text file that Mod Organizer 2 uses, where it stores this information, if you could link me to a copy of that. And then I have another one I want to throw together, or basically I want to pull some of the code out of my mod helper application and make that into a standalone program. But I need to know a list of mods, the actual folder names that are involved in in a mod organizer 2 game. So over here, I seen there was a mod list text. Now, what I do is when I extract, let's say I want to extract a archive, like a zipped file that I download off the Nexus or another location, I create a folder that has the the zipped or the compressed file's name without the extension. So it ignores where it's located, because it could be located locally on my computer on one of my servers over here, like the NAS box I have, or it could be located on a much older, kind of, before I actually built my NAS box, a NAS substitute, which was a media center. That's kind of like a dumping grounds now. Um, so it doesn't care where it comes from. It takes the actual file name without any path, strips off the extension, and then it creates a folder in what I call the managed folder location. And that managed folder location, I believe, is in the default section up here. This is where it has a default, because this is where it gets, see the mods folder? That's the managed folder location. So that's what I'm looking for mods. If you change this to be the actual parent folder of all the mods that Mod Organizer 2 extracts, then I can find the folders, and then I can actually easily search for loose or embedded files in those folders. I actually have a function called which mod is what it's called. And what I do is I scan every one of those folders, and I look in BA2s, and I look for loose files to say, yes, these are where this file is located. So if this file is being overridden, this is where it's located. And I also want to include some of the features of being able to double click on something in a list. I want to be able to double click on a list item over here. See, now a single click does this, but I want to be able to double click it. And I have that functionality already built into the mod helper application, that main GUI. I just have to cut and paste the code, cut it out, and then paste it into a new app, and we should be good to go. But what I have there is called a show function. So if you double click on something, it will actually call a show method, and then the show method has to decide what type of item you just double clicked on. If it's, let's say, a game save, it'll bring up more information. If it's, let's say, like a NIF, you can then run NIF scope, passing the name of that NIF to it. Now, unfortunately, this particular version doesn't, it does not extract NIFs. I don't have the extraction code in there yet. I do have I think it's the LMZ library. It was a LZ, or forget what it is. It's one of the it's the decompression library that worked for Oblivion and Fallout 3 in those games, but I don't have the L4Z built in. I do have some L4Z code in there, but I haven't actually tested it or played around with it. But if it's a loose file or something, you can easily bring it up. It's same for textures. If it's a loose file texture, and that's what I use a lot, if I'm thinking, okay, where is this texture coming from? Then I can look and say, oh, it's in these mods, and I can actually look and see where it exists in that conflict utility, because that also loads, it goes by plugin order, and it also loads all of the BA2s, extracts the data to build up that database. So in this application, when it can't find the plugin text, that is an automatic thing that OpenGame does. Remember, it's just populating a data set. It's just a game info data structure is what it is. It's populating that structure so each of those individual fields can be accessed. And one of the structures that it populates is plugin list. And the reason I do that is I can compare. So when I go to launch my game, there's a method which says, okay, this is what, when I open the game, this is the plugin list I found. This is the plugin list you want to use. There are changes, and then it will log those changes in a manifest. So I could go over to the manifest, and I could say, okay, what plugins were added? It'll have a plugin name and a plus or a minus if I took a plugin out. And that way, if something wonky happens in my game, it adds one more layer to where I can check to see what I did, like what happened. And as I'm debugging that mod helper app, occasionally there's a bug in there where it will inadvertently just deactivate a plugin, especially if it gets confused as to where the plugin's from. So if something in the data gets bamboozled, it will actually think, oh, you want this turned off when I don't. And that way, when I actually fire the game off, it'll warn me. It'll pop up and say load order is changed. Also, if I add something without realizing it, it'll pop up and say load order has changed. So I can clearly see where I add and remove plugins. Also, using that manifest, what I can do is I can literally say, okay, problems, I can tell now that I've started to crash more and more. What did I do? And I can go back and look at the manifest and I could say, okay, yeah, I removed this plugin, not a good idea. Or I added this plugin, not a good idea. It's crashing around this settlement, or it's crashing when I do this. This plugin does exactly that. So it gives me an easy tool to kind of help resolve the problem. So this program here, it doesn't use it. It's just populating that. It's populating that list. Now, one that would use it is that conflict utility. That does use that plugin list. So for that, because this right here would need to be changed over here in the Fallout section. Let me get this over here a little bit more in the Fallout. And this is almost like an extended hard coding the way I look at it, but it allows the user to change it. So Fallout 4 here. So this is where you would need to put that. But I need to, if there's a mod organizer 2 file that contains that profile information, and all I need is all I really need to see is what folder is it looking at for that profile. So let's say it's the folder that you showed me. What is the name of the current profile? So if that's saved in a file, I can get that current profile name, and then I can build the folder from that. I can actually put a substitute parameter, actually a parameter in here. We could do something like, it would be easy to do because this is all automatic. We could do something like this, profile name. And then I could set the profile name. So a if a if a substitutional parameter exists, and there is functions to where it's in a text file. You don't even have to program it. You don't have to recompile or anything. You can literally say profile name equals over here. You can say equals normal. And when it loads a file with this in it, it'll add basically this. It puts this in a dictionary. And then normal is the data for that dictionary, or for that entry. That's what it does. You wouldn't put you wouldn't actually put the dollar sign or the braces. So that way you can add your own substitutional parameters. And anytime anything is loaded, anytime like when this is, well, let me rephrase that. Text files don't really count per se, but well, that's a good question. Like it depends, because it just depends. It depends on what text file it is. So for example, a regular text file, no, it doesn't, because that's like a lot of extra processing to check each line. But something like this game configuration, yes, because it has to replace these substitutional parameters with whatever the actual value is. And what that lets the user do is create constants. And if you've ever looked at the bottom at the file, you'll see a constant section where this is loaded as where a person would put for example, where you would put, think for a minute here, and then you would just put there, and that would add that to the database when that application loads. So I haven't tested that. I threw that in a while back, so that will need to be tested just to double check and make sure. Uh, okay, so yeah, and if it's possible, and if it's possible, could you link me to that? I think it's the mod. the mod list text, because I need to see if that I need to see what's in that. I need to see if those are folder names, because if those are folder names, that's perfect because that is in the profile. And then again, all I need is something that will help me. Just I can grab the file, I can grab a mod organizer 2 file, and it says, okay, this is the current profile. That's what I'm going to build the dictionary with, because we will add that as a substitutional parameter, and it will be there. Once it's in there, it doesn't matter whether it's run through mod organizer 2. It's just building up that dictionary. Okay, so that'll help us with that. Now the exiting part, I'm not sure, because when the game exits, I tested it here. I don't have mod organizer 2, and the way that I tested it here is I ran the game. And when I went back, I didn't save anything. I just launched the game. So I go back and take a look at the papyrus logs utility, at what it reads from the papyrus log, and it's blank. There's nothing there because it just created a blank papyrus log. But it recognized that it changed or it was created. It picks either or as an event, and then it loads it. So then I went ahead and exited back to the desktop, and I exited the game, and I didn't crash. So I'm like, okay. And I'm not, and what I'm thinking it is might be a file in use, but I'm not sure yet. So the next thing I did is I started the game up and I saved, and then I went back to desktop, and then I did a continue. I kept the same game running, continue, go back to desktop. I pressed the tab key, and then I went back to the desktop. So that way at the tab key, I press tab, hit escape, and then I quit not to desktop, I'm sorry, to the main menu. So I hit the tab key, and then I hit escape, and then I went to quit to main menu. That's what I did, not the desktop. And I did test the desktop too. But that I couldn't get that one to crash. Because I was wanting my game to crash. And every time I went to continue the game, the game stayed running. So, and by the only thing I could do to replicate it was if I pressed the tab key, that opened up my Pip-Boy. By escaping, exit save was disabled. So that I couldn't get that to crash. And the only thing I don't know, like the only thing I can think of, because I don't know why the save would crash. That one I don't know. I do have a function in there to clean up game saves it doesn't recognize, but that is disabled. And I checked it just now. I thought, okay, maybe, God forbid, maybe something bad happened. I checked that, and that was fine. So that's actually over here. Let me drop this down for a minute. And let's grab, let me think. Let me think about this before I do it. Let's get config. Let's see, let's do config. And under games, there is cleanup game saves as false. I went ahead and wrapped that within a configuration, and these are loaded when every application initializes. And this is in all the standalone apps. It's used in my main program too. So I set it to, I left it true when I tested it. It did clean up my game saves, but then I turned it to false. It does ignore it. And I also changed over here so that delete to trash can is true. So that means when it goes to delete things, not that it should, that's one of the things I had to change about the game slide, because remember, I wrote this back when I was on my system. So it's like, I want to clean up my game folder. So anything, and that's what this is right here. So any file that's not an F4SC or a false file, which is right here, anything that's not false or, that's F4SC, it will delete. But that's disabled. So that should not have affected you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I haven't tested on Mod Organizer 2. It doesn't do that on mine. Let me see, because my game saves are all set. Let me look over here. Need to go this way. So what we're looking for are saves. So I believe let's see, FOSS. I'm thinking there should be, these are probably old ones. See, there's an F4SC file right here. See, F4SC. Let me see if I can move this over, because a lot of these are older files here. So let's see. There's a FOSS file, FOSS, F4SC file, FOSS. So there's F4SC files there. So it doesn't clean those out. So that shouldn't have happened. So that would be the next thing I would suspect. Maybe something happened. Maybe for some reason it whacked an F4SC file, but that code should not even get executed. That shouldn't even happen. So that one I'm not sure about. The only other thing I can think of is, very briefly, I opened the papyrus log, and I do believe it's open share. So we can check that real quick. That's the only other thing that I could even think of. All right, so let's go over to here. I think it's, oh, I'm in the wrong library. Let's go to this library. All right, here we go. So this is where I load the text file up, and right in here is the loop. Here's the loop right here, while. Just a while loop. So I open it, read write, access read. So maybe with the write, and I'm just guessing, maybe I need to open it, file share read. Maybe for a brief moment, the file is locked, and therefore it can't, for some reason the papyrus cannot output. That I'm not sure. I tried it here and it didn't crash on me. So yeah, that one's kind of got me perplexed, because those are the only ones that I could think of that would really cause that problem. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. I'm gonna have to think about that one for a little bit. All right, I'm gonna get ready and test yours. I think I've got everything set up. I've got it. I'm gonna install it, and then we're gonna run through and we're gonna check gonna give it a good test for you, and then I'll post back the results. It'll be here. It'll be in a few minutes. I think I've got pretty much all the daily downloads done. I've got my coding done, and I'm pretty sure my slate is clean. I got a ton of stuff, but don't even think about that. Yeah, man, I'll get it for you. Just give me a few minutes, and I'll run it, double check it, and then see if I can get some results you can use. Thanks a lot, man, for testing that for me. I'm gonna have to work on that, because I don't know what would have caused that. I couldn't get it to crash, but I don't use Mod Organizer 2, so I'm gonna have to try to think of some mechanic that Mod Organizer 2 uses that I'm not using. All right, man. It's good chatting with you. Let me go ahead and get this organized, and I'll be back here shortly with your test.